So I'm trying something a little new here. This won't be like one of my fully fleshed out, heavily edited video essays. This will be more like a brief, like, my thoughts on this new movie that just came out type deal. And I'll keep it pretty quick because I don't want to do too much editing. And I wanted to do this quick video because I just saw Five Nights at Freddy's, and it's probably, definitely the worst movie I've seen all year. And I have a lot to say about it. Also, spoilers for the movie from this point on. I'll preface this video by saying I have a weird relationship with this franchise. Five Nights at Freddy's is a series that's basically followed me throughout my entire life. When the first game came out in 2013, it was the biggest fucking thing ever. I was in 5th or 6th grade when it came out, and everyone was talking about it. We'd all huddle up during recess and watch one of my friends play it on like his first generation iPhone. We'd all watch the Markiplier Let's Plays, the MatPat Game Theory videos. I really have a lot of nostalgia for that first game, and I played 1, 2, 3, and 4 all as they came out. To me, the series and my interest in the series definitely peaked with those first 3 games, and it lost me with how drastically 4 changed things up. And afterward, I basically lost interest in the whole series because Scott Cawthon just kept pumping out like 10 more versions of the exact same game. But the weird thing about the FNAF series is that the main point of interest isn't the actual games themselves, but the lore. Five Nights at Freddy's has this enormous fucking Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones level lore behind it in terms of how many layers there are to this shit that stretch all across like 10 games and 3 books and now a movie. Now, I know a lot of people who are completely obsessed with this lore and know every single aspect of it by heart, but going into the film, I only really knew the basics. Michael Afton was the owner of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria and was a big-time child murderer who killed kids and put their corpses in the animatronics at the restaurant. Then the dead kids possessed the animatronics and put Afton in this Springtrap suit, and I suppose a child got bit in 1987. I think that's a big part of it. And I think you play as him in the 4th game. I don't know, it's been a while since I've watched the game theory videos. But really, I went in knowing everything you'd need to know to understand this film. Because let me tell you, on its own, if Five Nights at Freddy's never existed before this movie, and it was entirely an original film, it would probably be considered one of the worst movies made in the past few years. It legitimately fails on every single front. The characters are boring, this custody battle plotline was so uninteresting, I was dying of boredom in the fucking theater. It's just a total mishmash of jumbled ideas and plot points that make no sense. It's shot and directed like a Lifetime original movie. It's completely inept in every way. But because Five Nights at Freddy's is a big pre-established name, you've already got an army of children who will just blindly support anything related to this series just on name alone. All because of the lore, the fucking lore. And it's developed such a big fan base because of it. Even if it's just 2 hours of Scott Cawthon spreading his asshole and taking a massive shit on camera, which isn't far from what this film is, he'd probably still be getting this rabid fan base leaping to defend it. Oh, the critics are just snobby, pretentious assholes who suck the fun out of everything. Just because Five Nights at Freddy's isn't a 4-hour-long black and white Hungarian film about the fall of communism means they hate it. As if Saw X, another heavily fan service oriented horror film made for the fans of the series, wasn't critically praised last month. Yes, suck on that copium harder, dear FNAF fans. Who cares that the narrative makes no sense? Who cares that it's the most excruciatingly boring and poorly made film I've seen in theaters all year? Who cares that it's directed like a Lifetime movie and isn't even scary for a second? It's not about all that, it's about the lore, it's for the fans. It's completely unbelievable to me how, after going through like 3 different directors and an entire change in studios, Scott Cawthon still took the most uninteresting approach they could have taken for a FNAF movie here. I think they realized you can't really do much with the concept of one nameless, faceless dude in a room looking at monitors and flesh it out into a narrative feature film. So they overcompensated so hard by cramming in so much story into this film. This custody battle plot, Mike's relationship with his sister, him having to deal with the animatronics, the shit with Afton, Veronica's character, Mike trying to find his brother's kidnapper through his dreams, which takes up like half the fucking runtime. None of it meshes together well, and it makes for an incredibly awkwardly paced film. So much of this movie is spent with Mike asleep. Why is this such a huge aspect of the film? It's so uninteresting. There's nothing about these scenes that feels anything related to what you'd expect from Five Nights at Freddy's. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's in the lore, dude. Mike Schmidt or whatever, who's in one of the fucking books, I guess. I don't give a fuck. It's not about the extended lore and these books and the fan service. It's the fucking movie that is boring. There's barely anything that carries over from the gameplay or what you'd expect from Five Nights at Freddy's. No flashing lights down hallways to see if the animatronics are there. No having to manage power. Praying it turns 6 a.m. and standing completely still playing dead before Freddy kills you. Mike, looks at the monitors for one scene and they do a, oh, remember this from the games thing? With Foxy's curtains being open that has zero payoff. This being labeled as a horror film is legitimately false advertising because this is, not even a horror movie at all. At all. At no point is it even trying to be. Or at least I hope it isn't, because these attempts at scares are embarrassing. There's no atmosphere, there's no tension. Outside of one scene of extremely mild violence, this really could have been rated PG. Sure, the original FNAF relied heavily on jump scares being its main source of horror, but it created a really tense atmosphere with you being stuck in that claustrophobic office. There's real tension and anxiety that it induces whenever you see someone move on one of the screens. The reason the jump scares were so effective was because they were the result of build-up the game naturally created. This movie has none of that. It's shot and edited like a low-budget TV drama. There's no gore, hardly even a drop of blood. It cuts away from violence before anything interesting happens. But of course, I'm forgetting that this movie is primarily for children. This super brief bad visual effects shot of this girl being bitten in half is the best you'll get. Of course they couldn't make this movie rated R. If they did that, 90% of the core demographic for this franchise wouldn't even be allowed to see it. Also, this one cupcake thing is the only animatronic that actually serves as a threat. None of the others do anything. It's all just this cupcake. Is this cupcake also possessed by a dead kid? Or is it just an extension of Chica's dead kid ghost? I don't know. I'm sure it's in the fucking lore somewhere. This one scene where all these guys get killed was so forced. There's no resolution to the fact that this whole group of people who this lady hired just abruptly went missing. What? No follow through on the police's part to try and find who broke into Freddy's? This one girl seemed like she was close with Mike, and he just never questioned that she disappeared completely. He calls her once and she doesn't pick up, and then he instantly forgets about her. This entire scene exists just to give the film a higher body count, because if not, the opening dude would be the only person in this entire film who died. It's embarrassing. This movie is so tonally confused. A huge chunk of this film is dedicated to making the animatronics cute and cuddly. Aren't these guys supposed to be scary? This montage was fucking laughable. What is this film going for? Aren't the corpses of dead children supposed to be stuffed into these things? Why don't they smell like fucking rotting corpses? So many plot points made no sense at all. Why is Michael Afton a career counselor now? In this rinky-dink small-town community, he was never found out as the kid killer in the 80s, so he didn't need to go into hiding or anything. Is this just his hobby? Going from being a big-time business owner to being a career counselor? Does he just send people to the pizzeria to die? He knows the animatronics are possessed, so why would he keep giving people the job unless he wanted them to die? Why would he send Mike to the pizzeria if he knew about his brother who he killed in the 80s? How did Afton instantly know Mike was the brother of this one kid who he kidnapped and killed in the 80s? Did he ask the kid what his last name was before he killed him and he just remembered it for 3 decades? If his whole plan was to just kill Mike, why wouldn't he do it the first night? Why would he wait so long? Why didn't the animatronics kill him the first night, or the second or third like they did the security guy at the beginning? What about the fucking aunt? She was killed in Mike's house and there was no investigation, no follow-up to this whole person disappearing. What happened to the body? Did Mike dispose of it? Nobody's questioning how in this big custody battle, she just completely vanished off the face of the earth, and now Mike has full custody of the kid. There's no resolution to any of this. Did Freddy walk from the pizzeria to the house? Did he Uber there? I don't know, maybe all these completely nonsensical plot points that are clearly the result of the first draft level screenplay this film has are all answered somewhere in the stupid fucking lore, and I just have to play 10 video games, read 3 books, and watch 20 game theory videos in order to enjoy this shit-ass prolapsed anus of a movie. Vanessa is a terrible character. She goes from loving the fact that this child is getting along with and playing with these murderous possessed robots with dead children stuffed in them, to saying she'd shoot Mike if he ever brought her back within like 3 minutes. She's completely unrealistic. Like, she tells Mike he's in trouble for the fact someone broke into Fazbear's, but he doesn't get in any trouble or lose his job, and there's no resolution to this plot point because I guess she does nothing about it. Like, you're a fucking cop. You're supposed to report the fact that he failed at his job, and he's supposed to get fired. If you're trying to save his life and not have him be killed by the animatronics like you say you are, why wouldn't you want him to get fired from the job? But I don't know, maybe the fact that she's completely inept at her job is actually more realistic for a police officer character. There's no weight to the fact that Afton is her father because this major plot point is introduced like 5 minutes before the confrontation between them. I feel like maybe more could have been done on the part of Vanessa's character with the fact that, you know, her own father was a serial child murderer. That probably should have left some mental scars, but she's fine. Her finally going up against and challenging her evil, oppressive father, who's had her under his thumb her entire life, should have been like the biggest moment of the film narratively, but it's handled so underwhelmingly in this nothing scene. Why does Afton wear the Springtrap suit? I assume it's to trick the animatronics into thinking he's one of them, but I don't know if that's the case because his mask is like off when he's trying to tell them orders. But if this is the case, then why does he wear the suit that has the dangerous, sharp, metal, interlocking fucking saw trap mechanisms inside of it, instead of like a foam mascot costume or something? He was directly involved in the making of the animatronics. He should know that these suits are death traps. Why would he just nonchalantly wear one? In FNAF 3, in one of the minigames, it's shown that he was forced into the suit when trying to get away from one of the dead kid's ghosts. And so the question of why would he even wear one of these is already answered here, so why would they change it for the fucking movie? Afton becoming Springtrap is such an important moment in the overarching FNAF story. Why would Scott Cawthon actively portray it in the dumbest fucking way possible here? How are FNAF fans defending this shit? I'd be fucking pissed at this bullshit if I was a FNAF fan. I mean, I am pissed. Abby's actor was also kind of really bad, which is less so the fault of the actress since she is a child, and more so the fault of the adult, talentless hacks that made this bullshit, who casted a bad actress in one of the most integral roles of the film. Again, I can't believe that so much of this film is spent on this fucking custody battle storyline. What were you thinking, Scott? Sure, this movie is for the fans. It's littered with fan service in every scene, but trying to fit in as much lore as possible ruins the narrative. Afton, Springtrap, the Ghost Kids. It feels like Afton should have been something to build towards since this is supposed to be a trilogy. Why just reveal it in a minute before the climax? Everything that happens at the end is so stupid. And I know this film being all about the lore is appealing to the fans, but it makes for such a clunky, cluttered narrative. This is its own narrative feature film. They should have trimmed it way down and focused on a more specific narrative thread. If you just want lore, all the fucking lore, just watch the game theory videos or play the fucking 18 Five Nights at Freddy's games. Why would you also try to turn this narrative feature film into something like a MatPat game theory video? The way the games deliver lore and tell their stories don't translate into a cinematic form at all, with a 3-act structure and a protagonist. They work because they're video games that can drip feed the grander story through gameplay and secrets and the mini-games. And this movie tries to smash like 3 games worth of story and lore and plot points into one film, while also adding all this new shit like Mike's custody battle and search for his brother in his dreams. So there's dozens of plot points that either make no sense or get completely forgotten about. But I don't know, there's enough fan service and cameos spewing throughout to distract the low attention span preteen audience from the fact that the narrative is dog shit. In my mind, there are 2 ways to handle a Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Strip everything down and make it a 90-minute, legit scary horror film about a dude trying to survive against animatronics, trying to kill him, or go all in with the fan service. Have dozens of animatronics, all lore stuff, tons of YouTuber cameos, make Markiplier the lead, and just have a big dumb celebration of FNAF. And this movie tries to strike an in-between by trying to be an actual narrative feature film and a huge celebration of Five Nights at Freddy's, but it fails enormously at doing either. But it's just supposed to be for the fans, and the critics are all snobby assholes and should just ignore the fact it's a fucking awful narrative that makes no sense because Afton says the line he says, and there's Golden Freddy, and Matt Pat says it's just a theory. Fuck off. This movie is fucking terrible. 1 star out of 5, it's the worst thing I've seen all year.
Was that the bite of 87?